Hi, Michelle. Uh, First off, thanks for letting me do this. Thanks for having patience with me and actually giving me the opportunity to make it this way. I hope that this is what is needed from my side for you to clear me out on this assessment. Um, Anyways, I'm gonna base this presentation or talk, whatever we want to call it, on the readings of week number 10 with a few different topics here, mainly on children and education. Um, so May starts off by talking about children and that children are the most affected by poverty and global injustices, and that's because uh, they have the least resources and they're least able to provide themselves self-care and protection when stuff happens around them. They can't work, they don't have income often, most of the times, and when devastating things happens around them, they're not equipped and mentally prepared most of the times to actually take action and survive. And so in Matthew 19 and verse 14, Jesus says, "Let the children come to me and do not hinder them, because the kingdom belongs to them." And so children should always be a priority for the church, for us as Christians, when we are involved in social injustices. May later on speaks about writes about child soldiers. And according to UNICEF, a child soldier is a human being who is under 18 and a part of any kind of armed forces. So either if they have a weapon in their hand, if they're shooting, defending, or if they're even a messenger, if they're in any part, any kind, and in any, if they're in any part of any kind of armed forces, they are counted as a child soldier. And in 2008, the UN reported that over 300,000 children are being used as child soldiers in 30 different countries. And in addition to that, 500,000 children are being used in paramilitary hard word, sorry, activities around the world. And the issue has become more and more public throughout pop culture and popular media. And for example, the movie Blood Diamond kind of shows us the reality for child soldiers. It's a real popular movie, and it kind of opens up the eyes for the rest of the world how it could be for the reality for child soldiers. And to help awareness, there is a great documentary that May wants us to look at, and it's called "What's Going On." What's going on, child soldiers in Sierra Leone? And so my first question would be, how can we as a church or Christian people raise awareness when it comes to this, and how can we get people to take action, to get people to go from apathy to advocacy when it comes to this? Because this is clearly something that breaks the heart of God and therefore it should break our hearts. But I believe that most of us doesn't know the reality, how it looks like, and how many, like 300,000 children are being used as child soldiers. How can we make the church or people around us to take action? That's my first question. Education is next topic, and this is domestic education, and it's based on the United States. And May writes that education is the single most influential factor for to contribute success of our future, and it's the biggest stepping stone to help people to progress out of poverty. And in May 17, 1954, the United States decided to stop segregation in schools based on race or the color of our skin. It has, however, led to a segregation based on income, where the poor is overly represented by people of color. And one could argue that this decision was made mainly to save the face of the government, where they could say, "Hey, it's not legal to be a racist. We can't have it like that anymore." But the reality is that in many ways it looks pretty much the same as it did before 1954, because poor people are often colored people in the United States, and they're not getting the same chance to a good education because the good schools cost money, and the public schools are almost free, and that's the only schools that poor people, again often colored people, can afford to put their children in. And so my second question here would be that in Sweden, every school is a government school, and parents can't decide where to put their kids to give them an advantage or a better opportunity. And so this means that every kid gets the same chance of education, the same learning skills and such things. But it also means that well-performing kids won't get an opportunity to further develop. And so my question is which one is to prefer? Where people who have money, but people where kids, like where parents are educated already, the kids are more likely to educate themselves as well because of the culture in the family. And so that means that those families often have more money. But in Sweden, it doesn't matter because everyone goes through the same school education system, every single kid. And so which one is to prefer? And then on a global scale, education worldwide, there's approximately 121 million kids that are too poor to go to school. They need to find ways to provide for their families or such things. And statistics shows that if we would spend just 1% of what we spend worldwide on weapons on a yearly basis, just 1%, every single one of these 121 million kids would get an education, would get to attend school. And education is a primary way out of poverty, but yet over 1 billion, or almost 1 billion people cannot read or write. And so everything starts with education. And there's so many different ways for us to actually take action and help out. And May gives us an example of an organization called World Vision. And they can put a child into school, get an education for 1 year for only $50. And then lastly, poverty with a biblical viewpoint. And so poverty is mentioned over 2,000 times in the Bible. So it has always been a real thing. Poor people has been a part of the society for forever. And God has given us a clear mandate how to respond to the poor. And it says in Deuteronomy 15 here, I'm going to read here. It says, "There will always be some in the land who are poor. That is why I'm commanding you to share freely with the poor and with other Israelites in need." And Jesus himself speaks about this when he speaks about, hey, you gave the people without a voice. You clothed the person who had no clothes. You gave food to the people who were starving. And when you did this, you did it for me. And so that is a clear mandate for us as Christians to actually take action and to go from a state of apathy to a state of adequacy. Thank you. I hope this was enough. And again, thank you so much for letting me do this and taking extra time to help me to pass this assessment. God bless.